I'm with my friend Marianne, and she is a wife of Lance. They've been married for almost 7 years, and they've got two kids, a little girl who's 6. Is she 6 already?
She is 5.5.
Okay.
So,
And then a little boy who just turned 2, right? Okay. Awesome. So thank you so much for being with me. Marianne, you have experienced a lot of miscarriages, and you are willing to share that with us today, and I'm so grateful for that. Tell us a little bit about kind of your experience with those, what has made them different from each other, and kind of how you've grown through that experience.
okay, so I'll start. My daughter is 5, so she is my first, and I was pregnant with her, and I remember the one thing I cannot do is lose this pregnancy. I cannot handle having a miscarriage because I'm so excited for this baby, and it just so excited. And I didn't. I had a really healthy pregnancy, and she was born, and she's the light that has gotten me through a lot of hard times. And let's see. So anyway, and then I got pregnant with our second, and our kids were gonna be pretty close together. They're gonna be about I can't remember, 22 months, maybe. No, 19 months. Anyway, which I was a little nervous about, but I was really excited. And then my sister was gonna have a baby at the same time. Anyway, so that pregnancy, we had moved across the country, so I found a new OB and went in for my 10-week ultrasound, and they couldn't find the heartbeat, but not a big deal, you're only 10 weeks, come back at 12 weeks and we'll look again. So then at 12 weeks, checked again, couldn't find the heartbeat, so they sent me to get an ultrasound. And the ultrasound, they said, okay, we're not sure if you're 5 weeks pregnant or if if something happened. So yeah, so anyway, we went on this trip, we had this trip planned, and I was getting my blood drawn to check HCG levels. And then we went on this trip to Boston to visit my brother. Lance had a week off, it was a big deal, we wanted to go do something fun. So we get a blood draw and we leave town. We stop in Palmyra, New York on the way, and the doctor had called and said, your HCG level was actually really high, but it's going down. And that could potentially mean a few concerning things. And anyway, but most likely, you're going to lose the pregnancy. And we're not totally sure. I don't even remember, it's kind of fuzzy. All these, anyway, so in New York, my aunts, and I feel like all these little kind of miraculous things happened that weekend. We stopped at my aunt's, and my cousin, who her husband he was in residency at the time, and she had one daughter, and she had just gone through 3 miscarriages, and she was pregnant, and she was going the next day to get a D&C because it looked like she was miscarrying a 4th time. And so when I was like, yeah, I think I'm miscarrying, she was just person to talk to, and it was amazing. And then I had this experience where I was just really uncertain. Facts were uncertain, and I didn't know if I could handle losing the pregnancy. And so anyway, but I just felt this very real comfort from the Lord that everything was going to be okay, and that I was going to pregnancy, but it was going to be okay. And just that comfort just replaced the uncertainty and just filled me with peace that going forward it was going to be okay. And so we left, went to my brother's in Boston, and so we just visited my brother, toured the sites downtown, and then we decided to go one day do the Liberty Trail in downtown Boston. And we were walking down the Liberty Trail, which is it's a couple miles long, but those few miles walking away from our car, I kept having these really strong cramps, and I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Maybe this is miscarriage happening. This is my longest miscarriage story. It was just really traumatic, but because I didn't know what was happening, I was pretty far along, and the farther along you are, more vasculature is developed, and the more intense the miscarriage process is. But anyway, ended up taking an ambulance to the hospital, where I passed the tissue, and it was honestly like I have experienced natural childbirth, and it was the worst pain of my life. But probably because I just didn't know what was happening. I had no idea. But anyway, got to the hospital, and then like once past the tissue, and then I was like totally fine. But anyway, it was a really emotional, traumatic day. And then we go back to Michigan, where we were living, and a couple weeks later, the Boston hospital calls, and they're like, hey, so you actually had we did pathology on the tissue, and you actually had a partial molar pregnancy, which baby lives in a partial molar pregnancy for a little while, but can't develop because cysts develop as well. And cysts usually develop in your uterus, and they can potentially lead to cancer. And so because of that, you have to, if your HCG levels start going up, once they've dropped all the way to 0, they immediately start you on chemo. And so you can't, like, if you get pregnant and your HCG levels go up accidentally, they'll immediately start you on chemotherapy. So they're like, you can't get pregnant for a year because you've had this, and you'll have blood draws every week for a while, and then every couple of weeks, every month. 6 months later, all my labs had been normal, and my doctor said, hey, like after 6 months, the chances of getting cancer are almost 0. So if you want to have a baby, you want to try to have a baby, go ahead. So anyway, so went ahead, and I was pregnant pretty soon after that. And then I had to get labs drawn throughout that pregnancy to make sure it was normal. But after just maybe 7 weeks, my HCG levels started dropping. So then I went for ultrasounds, and they said, okay, it looks like the baby's not growing like it should be. HCG levels are dropping. You're probably going to miscarry. So then I miscarried like the week before Christmas. And anyway, there's so much that goes into miscarriage, but everyone has been way different emotionally for me. And that one is kind of just like, oh, like this happened. Okay. Like, just like numb, almost don't know what to do. And so many family members with babies do it at the same time. It's just always, anyway, that I remember saying, oh, if I hear of one more person who is due at the end of July, I am just going to cry, like start crying right when they tell me. Normally I'm so happy when other people are like pregnant and having babies, but for that miscarriage, it was really hard for me to hear about other pregnancies. And then I fast forward a few months, I was pregnant again, positive pregnancy test, and then a week later saw the signs of miscarriage, and had another miscarriage. Then in May, a few months later, I was pregnant again, and had an early ultrasound, seen the heartbeat. We're really, really excited, and I just had this like really peaceful feeling. Everything's gonna be okay this time. I know so many people are praying for me. It's gonna be okay. And then started spotting again, and then had another miscarriage. And at that point, it was just like, oh, so disappointing, and just so like, oh, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, am I just not supposed to have more kids? So then, but at that point there were things to do. And then all the lab work came back with totally negative. Everything was normal. Got chromosome testing for my husband and I. Everything was normal. And that was like a blow. I was like, I just want answers so I know what to do. But there are no answers. And so then I just waited a while, a few months before I was like, I don't think I can try again for a little while. I just need some time, give my body some time to fully recover and myself emotionally to process everything. And I did start meeting with a therapist around that time, who was really helpful in just like managing stress and managing loss. And I met with her for the next year and a half. So that was really good for me, especially for my just emotional and mental health during medical school, because my husband, Lance, was very busy during that time and just not always there emotionally because he was so stressed about everything he had on his plate, which was a ton. And so that was a huge relief for me. And then I got pregnant again, and went in for ultrasounds, and again the baby wasn't growing like it should be, so they sent me in for more ultrasounds. But then, like, the baby was fine, and everything kept going fine, and found out the gender, and it was a boy. And my daughter was super disappointed because she wanted a girl. but but yeah, the pregnancy went great. And then he was born the next May, and exactly, he was born about, yeah, exactly 2 years from when I actually first miscarried. Yeah, and anyway, it was the most joyful day of my life to just hold a baby. It was my baby, and yeah, it was the most blissful day for our family. And then he was just a little angel in our home, and has been ever since. And so those were my first 4. And then I thought, okay, like, we're done with medical school, and we moved. Now we live in Texas, and we're in residency, which is a different kind of stress. But anyway, so then I felt like I love newborns so much. I always feel like, oh, let's just have another baby. Let's just have another baby. Because I love babies, even though I'm not a great parent, I don't think. But I don't feel like I can handle them super great, but I just love babies. And so I felt like I was waiting for a long time. Like, okay, I know we should have a baby at about this time. And then my 14-week appointment, they did an ultrasound. I hadn't even met with the doctor. They just did an ultrasound for right when I got there. And for most of the ultrasounds I'd gotten early on, like, I'd see a baby, but the baby wouldn't be, I'd see something, but the baby, there was really no baby. It was just like, there's just a blob or on ultrasound for a lot of the very early miscarriages. But this time there's an adorable baby, and I'd been so anxious going into the ultrasound. Like, oh, I could just cry, like, tears of joy that there is a baby there. And then the doctor immediately was like, I'm so sorry. There's no heartbeat. The baby's not moving. And the baby had passed away about a week before that. And that was probably the hardest of all of the miscarriages for me, just because I had thought everything was going so great. I'd planned my life around this pregnancy and when the baby was due. And so those next few days were really hard. The next few months were really hard. My husband was working 80 hours every week for the next few months, and he had been the months before that. And so I felt like we just hit this emotional low, and I went to meet with a therapist again, which was really helpful. And I was honestly terrified of having a baby. After that, for months, terrified of pregnancy, terrified of just a lot of things. It just brought up, like, every fear in my life. Like, okay, I've got to reface all of these because somehow it just brought everything back up. But anyway, I worked through that with my therapist and just on my own emotionally. And now I'm in my 8th pregnancy and 10 weeks along, and I just went in for an ultrasound a couple days ago, and it was great. So
congratulations. That's really wonderful. So after you've experienced so many of these miscarriages, and you already had a little person to take care of as you're dealing with all of this trauma, and then with your last one, 2 little people to take care of, how do you go about going back to life as usual and explain to these kids that the baby's not there anymore? How did you deal with, I mean, even just saying that out loud makes me want to sob, to have to tell your 2-year-old that there's not going to be a baby for a while, you know? How do you do that? That sounds horrible.
Yeah, that was really hard. Yeah, because she wanted a baby brother or sister so badly. And so that was that was some of the hardest part for me when I got to the point where I was okay, but she still was just asking, like, when are we going to have a baby brother or sister? That was really hard. I honestly don't know how. I think we're just there for each other, and I think it was really hard on my daughter, because I would emotionally like check out for a week right after, and then I'd gradually come back to where I was before. But it was just such a process. Even though we were praying so hard for a miracle that we'd go back for one more ultrasound and the baby would be okay. But the miracle was not that the baby was okay, but it was that we were going to be okay because we had a Savior who was there for us. And even though it was such a dark time, it was incredible how much love. I couldn't feel love emotionally, because I was really depressed. But so many people just reached out to us in these really just personal, simple ways. And to me, it was like just a huge hug all the time. Even though I couldn't like take it in, I just knew that I was surrounded by love.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing how powerful those mantras can be. When we had a pretty hard time in our family a couple years ago, and I found the line in a hymn, through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. And that was like exactly what I needed. And so I had it down on a piece of paper. It's still on my fridge, just through thorny ways. That's all it says. And some days are thorny ways, but they lead to joyful end. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. So now that you've experienced a full pregnancy, a full-term pregnancy after all this great loss, and you're in another pregnancy right now, how do you tame the fear that has to be there and crop up so regularly that you're going to go through another experience like this? How do you keep the hope and just keep living your life and growing this baby inside of you with the fear that must be involved there?
Yeah, yeah, that fear does still crop up whenever I go in for an ultrasound. It's always, okay, prepare myself. Like, I close my eyes usually until I hear the doctor like say something positive, but just like prepare myself for either like to be super happy or super sad after this. But I love that through thorny ways leads to a joyful end, because that is what I have like proven in my life through going through all of this, that if I have another miscarriage, it will be sad. It will be hard. I will let myself feel that grief, but I know it will be okay. I'll let myself experience that grief, and it will hurt for a while, but it will be okay. And I'll, and yeah, so, I mean, there have been many times when I thought, oh, what if I never have another baby? And that is hard. And one thing my husband asked when I was like terrified of pregnancy for a while, he said, it was worth it to go through 4 miscarriages to get William here. Wouldn't it be worth it to go through 4 more to have another baby? And like my immediate gut response was definitely, it was so worth it. So worth it. And so if we have to lose 4 more babies to have another, it will be worth it. It will be hard, and it will be okay.
Yeah. Well, I admire your faith. That's incredible. You mentioned that your cousin was really helpful to talk to with that initial miscarriage, since she had experienced it already. Do you have things that you were told early on, or that would have been helpful for you to hear? You know, if you could tell yourself, a younger version of yourself now, what would have been helpful to hear in those early stages?
One thing my friend said actually early on, she'd been through a few miscarriages. She did quite a few, and she said, sometimes we try to take, in the moment, we try to learn from what we're going through. And sometimes our answers or our reasons aren't apparent until years later, when we're looking back and we can have that bigger perspective. And I think for me, trying to make sense of everything in the moment was sometimes not unnecessary. It wasn't helpful. If I could just let myself feel what I needed to feel without judging myself for whatever I needed to feel at that time. Then later I'd get the understanding and perspective that I needed.
Yeah, I love that. I noticed that you said that earlier too, that you just let yourself feel whatever you felt, and you don't feel shame for that. And I love that you mentioned working with a therapist too. I think that's really powerful. That can be really helpful for a lot of people. That's cool. Well, thank you so much. That's really a beautiful story and a heart-wrenching story, but I appreciate you having done the hard work of working through it so that you can share it with us. I hope a lot of women gain comfort from hearing your experience and knowing that they're not alone. That's powerful stuff. Are you ready for a questionnaire?
Sure.
Okay. Marianne, what's your favorite sound?
My newborn baby laughing. I remember when my daughter laughed for the first time, and I was like, that is the most beautiful sound in the world.
What's your least favorite sound?
Least favorite sound? Oh, my kids crying. Yeah, I don't like hearing their needs unmet at all.
What's your favorite word?
Probably joy.
Cool. What do you know?
I know that everything will be okay. Everything will work out.
I love that. What do you want to learn?
I really want to learn organization and time management. Balance.
Balance. That's my least favorite word, is balance. What scares you?
I think one thing that scares me more than anything else is not having a close relationship with my children or immediate family later in my life, or realizing I haven't taken the time when I had the time to form that relationship.
Yeah, that's valid. Tell me about a mom that inspires you.
Definitely my mom. I feel like she had 6 kids. She homeschooled them a lot, which for quite a few years, I cannot comprehend how she did it. And yeah, she is just incredibly hardworking and optimistic and faithful. And yeah, I love her. She's amazing.
Cool. All the good things. All the good things. Marianne, what are you good at?
What am I good at? Let's see. I think I'm good at noticing when someone else feels out of place and trying to be their friend, wanting to be their friend.
I love that. What a gift. Very cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.